Hey, it's Alex, and I'm back with another video to help you learn better marketing strategies and systems for your real estate business. And today, this video is going to be a little bit different because I'm interviewing somebody pretty fantastic. His name is Rodney Middendorf, and he is a professional real estate photographer. So there are some tools that we use internally. Now we don't get as fancy as I know that you do because this is what you do, but we use some things to kind of tweak some pictures here and there. So we've used things like PicMonkey, although it's not for editing. You can do the things you mentioned, like increase the highlights or the contrast and kind of just spice it up a little bit. So I think that it could be so simple to edit a photo. Even if you're just brightening it or just making a couple tweaks. But you mentioned another one. Was it Picasa?
Picasa, yes. Yeah. Yes, Picasa, and it's been a little while since I've used it, but I know it was very favorable back when I did for easy adjustments, and it was either free at the time or it's very affordable. I just can't remember which.
Yeah, I want to say it's still free, but I haven't used it in a while either. I used to use that as well. But there are a ton of free tools out there, inexpensive tools out there to help you just make the tweaks that we've mentioned to just get a better quality photo for your marketing. So we're gonna list them somewhere on this page or below this video so you guys can download those and kind of explore a few that we recommend. And feel free to comment anywhere so that if you guys have a tool that you love to edit photos, please share that with us as well. So once you have the equipment, once you've taken the photos of the listing, let's talk about editing, because this is something that can get pretty crazy. I mean, I've heard terminology here and there, which we'll talk about in a second, but what tools do you use to kind of enhance or edit the photos once you shoot the home?
I'm a big fan of using Adobe Lightroom. I've actually been using it for quite some time, and even the Apple version of it long before that. What that lets you do is it basically lets you go through and process the images. And I actually prefer the term process to editing because what you want to do is you basically want to adjust the lights and the darks so that it's a visually appealing image. But you don't want to retouch because again, it's that believability when you get there. That's just a big thing. Like if you're photographing even a car or a Wendy's hamburger, you know you're not getting the one in the picture. It's just a concept. But even though we are still selling a concept, we're selling the house that we're shooting, and it's very different. So because of that, when you get into these editing programs, you want to just adjust more or less the brightness and the contrast. That's the simple version. There are other sliders that you can use. And then also the colors. So let's say you took a picture that was really yellow. You might want to adjust the yellow out of that.
So is there a such thing as auto adjust? I know a lot of tools will offer auto adjust, but anytime I've ever pushed it, it just doesn't kind of quite look right. Is there such a thing?
I've never found one that I liked. That's a great question. I've never found one that I liked, and I try it every time they release a new program, and I'm like, yeah.
So when somebody has a listing with a grand window, kind of like what we have behind us, or something where there's a lot of natural light coming in, when you shoot it, at least with maybe the ones I've seen, there's a glare or there's that kind of weird light that you just can't get rid of. You're able to fix that with something that you're suggesting, correct?
You are. Now, in that particular situation, like that's where you might get into the more advanced equipment, like I use, because you need a lot more to be able to capture a lot more of that difference between the lights and darks. I am generally not a big fan of HDR photography for real estate. However, I do find if the agents are doing it themselves and they need to get that difference, they want to see out that window, but they also want to see in the darks, go ahead and use the HDR. It does flatten the lighting a little bit so that you don't get the lighting depth in the image, but that's an okay sacrifice to get a visual image that you can see.
So HDR, that's actually my next question. What does that mean?
HDR, it's high dynamic range photography. The chips that I use just naturally have a high dynamic range, so I don't have to do that. But HDR photography is when you take multiple images at different exposures. So, for example, one might be underexposed one stop, one might be at zero exactly the exposure it should be, and one might be overexposed. And so what that does is, like one of those images will let you see out the window, but the blacks are going to not be good. One of those images is going to have the blacks and the window not looking great, but everything else will will look great, and then that other image will recover all the blacks for you. So, and so what it does is the HDR just mashes those together to create one image where you get detail out of all those. But the drawback is that you lose some of the lighting depth that you'll have on the wall. It'll take that away, which is what will draw you into the image on a little higher operating level. So.
Okay. So if we popped an image into an editing software, what are the top little tweaks that you would say, play with these, maybe 3 or 4, and see what happens?
Right, and on some of that, there's a couple of options. First of all, like if you've got a simple program, brightness and contrast. Okay. Keep it simple. Honestly, back when I started doing this in 06, that's almost all we had. As you get into some of the more advanced programs, you can actually adjust a lot more than the brightness and contrast, shadows, highlights, and exposure. If we're going to keep it simple, and it's okay to keep it simple, the exposure is fine. So if you're just going to focus on exposure and then the white balance, as I mentioned earlier, it goes blue and yellow, and then the tint if necessary. You almost never have to touch the tint if it's there. I kind of want to tell you guys that, because if you start messing with it, you'll go crazy.
If you just take away a little bit of what we've been talking about, you're going to see a big difference in the way that your marketing presents itself for you, your listings, and just your overall online presence and the way that you're going to be able to sell your homes that you're listing better. Thank you so much for being here. I have been looking forward to this. I'm so excited to get this stuff edited and out there so everybody can see this. And you're going to work your magic on that because you are awesome at it. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Been a pleasure.
Seriously, thank you so much.
You're welcome.